Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RDX Sports Podcast. I'm Simon Head, and we have a huge night of fights coming our way from Newark, New Jersey. UFC 316 will take place at the Prudential Center this weekend with not one, but two bantamweight title fights at the top of the card. The main event will be the men's undisputed UFC bantamweight title on the line. Merab Dvalishvili, the current champion of the world at 135 pounds, in a rematch against Sugar Sean O'Malley. And in the co-main event, Julianna Pena will put her women's 135-pound title on the line against Kayla Harrison. It is a blockbuster double-header of bantamweight action at UFC 316, but that's not the only story heading into the weekend. We've got a stacked card of fights, so let's check out the fight card and work our way through it ahead of a huge night of fights at UFC 316. All right, let's take a look at the main event of the evening. UFC 316, Sean O'Malley looking to win back the bantamweight title as he takes on the man who dethroned him, Merab Dvalishvili. This is a fascinating matchup because normally when you get a rematch, things are pretty much the same heading into the rematch. There might be a little tweak here and there. This one feels a little bit different. If you look at how the first fight went, it was relatively close on the scorecards, but Merab Dvalishvili got the job done by unanimous decision. But the rounds that he won were dominant, and that made it feel like a more dominant overall performance. If it was like pride scoring, where you scored the entire fight in its entirety, it would have been a slam dunk win for Merab Dvalishvili. But using the 10-point must system that we use in the unified rules, and you score round by round, it's a much, much closer fight. And I think looking back at the fight, Sean O'Malley will take a look at some of those rounds and think, okay, there's opportunities here. And especially in that final round, he hurt Merab to the body, and Merab was starting to look up at the clock. He was looking to check how much time he had left to survive in the fight because it looked like he'd been hurt. I think it was a kick straight up the middle, catching Merab right in the solar plexus. And the man with the unbreakable cardio, for just a moment there at the end of that fight, looked like he was starting to wilt just a little bit. So it'll be very interesting to see how O'Malley approaches this. Is he just going to go head hunting again like he was in the first fight, just looking to connect with that one-shot knockout punch? Or will he mix things up? Will he look to chop the legs out from under Merab? Will he look to attack the body? Chopping the legs is always slightly risky against a wrestler because the minute you throw a leg, you're effectively giving them an opportunity for a takedown if you can time it. The body attack, hitting shots to the body, catching him with knees on the way in, even if he has to concede a takedown or two in the early rounds, to just invest in the body, even if he lands something in the act of being taken down, that damage can still accumulate as the fight goes on. But Sean O'Malley doesn't need to win all 5 rounds to win this fight. He just needs to win key moments, because this is all about damage when we're talking about scoring in mixed martial arts. Merab could take him down and keep him there for much of the round. But if Sean O'Malley is the one landing the damaging strikes, whether it be on the feet, off his back, during the transitions, those judges, especially if they've got super experienced judges who really know what they're doing, and fingers crossed there are, then that gives him the opportunity to win those rounds, even if he's going to have to spend most of them on his back. So I think making sure that his strikes count is going to be absolutely crucial for Sugar Sean O'Malley, but also the targeting and placement of those shots. And I think the attacking the body is going to be a real factor in this fight. However, Merab Dvalishvili and his relentless wrestling, his incredible gas tank, the man just does not seem to get tired. He could just rinse and repeat what he did in the first fight and be relatively confident of victory. He knows that O'Malley can't defend the sheer number of takedowns. I think he hit 6 out of 15 in the first fight, which as a success rate, it's about 40% success rate. Doesn't sound great, but it was the fact that he might have had the first 1 or 2 stuff, but it was the relentless, just continual pressure. Okay, you stuffed the first one. Here comes another one. You just about managed to stay on the feet after that one. Here comes another one. And it was the second or third attempts that were getting O'Malley to the ground. And statistically, his success rate didn't look fantastic, But if you actually look at when he was looking to make the takedowns or land the takedowns, he was eventually getting them. And that is going to be the crucial factor in this fight as well, because Sean O'Malley on his back is far less likely to finish the fight than Sean O'Malley on the feet. Because Merab has certainly been clipped in competitive action. You look at the last fight against Umar Nurmagomedov, he was getting dinged a few times by Umar's strikes. He was able to take them pretty well, but that's not a good game plan against someone like Sean O'Malley, who has legit knockout power in both hands. You don't want to be taking clean shots to the chin. And Merab has this very forward-driven approach. He can walk onto stuff, which just multiplies the power. And if you're up against a power puncher like O'Malley, that could spell curtains. So you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to make sure you time your takedowns really well. Merab did that in the first fight. How will he go in the rematch? But the interesting thing, actually, in media day this week, Merab said that he's going for the finish. He doesn't just want to get another decision win. A lot of his wins, 15 of his 19 career wins, have come on the scorecards. He's only finished 4 people, 3 by KO, 1 by submission. And I think he's wary of that. I think he's wary of people suggesting that his only path to victory is on the scorecards. And at media day, he was saying, I want to kick this guy's ass, but I want to win inside the distance. I want to get a finish. And he's really going to be focusing on that. For me, that might open things up more for Sean O'Malley, where you've got a guy who's really pushing and chasing for an outcome. Sometimes it can just leave you open to get caught. So I think this is a really interesting one. Also, that's one change. The other change is on the other side, where Sean O'Malley has stripped a lot of things back leading into this. He's been a lot more fight focused. He's ditched a lot of things. He's ditched his social media. He's making life a lot more simple. He's just trying to focus specifically on the task at hand, less about the promotion of the fight, less about the promotion of himself to some degree. The Sean O'Malley product has taken a backseat this week, heading into fight night. I don't even think he's going to dye his hair for the fight. And that's the first time in a while we can say that. Sean O'Malley sitting in a chair getting his hair done has been a part of the UFC embeddeds leading into probably his last 3 or 4 fights on that series on YouTube. But not for this one, so it seems. He's going to go in there, natural hair color, no social media, just focusing on the task at hand. And the trash talk's gone as well. Super respectful. I think maybe that defeat to Merab humbled him a little bit, but I also think Sean O'Malley's growing up as well. We've seen him, he came into the UFC virtually as a kid, and we've seen him mature and develop in front of our eyes, and he's a super talented fighter. And if he can zero in on his skill set and the job at hand, he's got a very good chance of winning the fight on Saturday night, because he's one of the best in the world. I'm leaning towards Merab. I think Merab by decision is probably the smart bet here, but because of the changes that are being made, Merab saying he's going to really chase the finish, that I think opens things up potentially for Sean O'Malley. O'Malley, knowing what he did to Merab at the very end of that fight, I think offers a window of opportunity as well. This is going to be a really interesting fight, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be just a simple rinse and repeat of what we saw in their first title meeting. So very interested to see how this one pans out, where the similarities will lie and where the key differences will be when Merab and Sean go head to head in their rematch at UFC 316. Should be an absolute cracker. I feel like it's the longer the fight goes on, the more it leans towards another win for Merab, but who knows? As we say, Sean O'Malley, with the one-shot knockout power that he has at his disposal, he only needs to win a split second of the fight, and then bang, it's game over, and he's walking away with the championship belt. So looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. That is the main event for UFC 316. Merab Dvalishvili, Sean O'Malley, Part 2. All right, co-main event at UFC 316, also at 135 pounds for the Women's Bantamweight Championship of the World. The Venezuelan Vixen Julianna Pena puts her title on the line against Kayla Harrison, 2-time Olympic gold medalist in judo at 174 pounds, I think it was. Moves into mixed martial arts, progresses her way into the PFL and becomes the PFL Women's Lightweight Champion. That is 155 pounds. So she's dropped almost 20 pounds from her judo days into her MMA days. Gets a world title in the PFL at 155 pounds. Moves to the UFC. There is no 155 pound division. There was a 145 pound division, but by the time Kayla got here, no 145 pound division anymore. That's been done away with. Kayla has to make 135 pounds. Of course, you get £1 leeway for non-title fights, and she used that £1 leeway for both of her UFC fights to date, as she picked up big wins against Holly Holm in her debut and then Ketlin Vieira in her second fight. Both weighing in at 136 pounds, both impressive performances and strong victories that have now put her right there at the top of the 135 pound division. She's going to challenge for the belt on Saturday night against Julianna Pena, who all gas, no brakes, full volume from the minute she walks into the room, big character and fights like one as well. She is in your face from the very first second, and she will just keep on pushing until she breaks you. And that's exactly what she did to Amanda Nunes when she captured the title at UFC 269 back in December of 2021. She absolutely ran over an Amanda Nunes who just was not ready for what Julianna Pena was bringing on that particular occasion. She was the second time round, however, as the Lioness won back the title with a unanimous decision win over 5 rounds in the rematch at UFC 277. Subsequently retired from the sport, denying us a trilogy fight between the two. I know Pena was very disappointed about that. Pena goes and beats Raquel Pennington. Really wanted to face Amanda Nunes after that. She wins the belt against Pennington, hoping to get Nunes out of retirement. That has not happened yet. More of that in a second. Instead, she gets Kayla Harrison, the most dominant athlete to join the UFC's women's division for quite some time. And this is a fight that really has piqued the interest of the MMA fan base. I think this is getting arguably even more attention than the main event. Also, we've got that spectre of Amanda Nunes hanging over this fight because she has stated that she's keen on coming back. And she's not going to come back just to play around on the mid-card. She's going to want to fight for her old title again. The Lioness, the greatest female fighter of all time, and a UFC Hall of Famer. She's coming back for a belt. That's how it seems. And who will she face? Will it be her old rival, Julianna Pena? Or will it be the new challenge, her former teammate at American Top Team in Kayla Harrison? It is going to be very interesting to see how this fight pans out because, as we mentioned, Kayla Harrison she has to go through absolute hell to make weight at 135 pounds. Let's not make any bones about it. And she's going to have to go all the way down to 135.0. 0.1's no good. 0.2's no good. 136 is definitely no good. 135 on the nose is the absolute minimum requirement here for Kayla Harrison. And she has a very difficult weight cut ahead of her. She's had 2 successful runs at making 136. So you'd like to think that the process is now nicely in place. She's got the benefits of American Top Team in her corner. One of the most decorated, one of the most well credentialed teams in the entire sport of mixed martial arts. The amount of experience that she has at her disposal just from there is going to be absolutely vital for her. Also, with the help of the UFC PI, whose staff will be on hand as well to assist fighters with safely getting down to weight. That I'm sure will be a helpful provision that Kayla Harrison and her team will be taking full advantage of during fight week as well. She gets to 135 pounds and gets there safely and looks not too terrible on the scale. Then she can rehydrate appropriately, get back to her full fighting weight in time for Saturday night. And if she steps through the cage door on Saturday night at 100%, I think that she's going to be very, very tough to stop. The bookmakers certainly think so. I think she's like a minus 750 favorite or something like that. Absolutely huge favorite. Which, you know, that's as Julianna Pena said this week at Media Day, that's disrespectful to her as the champion. I think she's a plus 525 underdog. So that's almost 5.5 to 1 underdog for a two-time world champion defending her belt against someone who has never made championship weight at 135 pounds before. That is a big, big price. That might be an appealing option for you if you fancy backing the underdogs on Saturday night. You'll get a big price on Julianna Pena to get the job done. But this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out affair. Whichever way this fight goes, it is going to be an absolute dogfight in the co-main event at UFC 316. Will it be Julianna Pena just putting on the pressure, putting on the volume, and gradually breaking down Kayla Harrison to the point that either she can stop her later in the fight or run out a decision winner? Or will we see Kayla Harrison step through the doors of the Octagon and put on an absolute performance and deliver a beatdown of the champion, Julianna Pena, and make a real statement to become the face of women's mixed martial arts in the UFC? It should be a fascinating fight. You would like to think that Amanda Nunes might even be there on Saturday night. And if she's there at Octagon side to watch this fight, it will set things up perfectly for the winner to take on Amanda Nunes in what would be a huge fight for the bantamweight title later this year. You could do that at Madison Square Garden. You could do that at the end of year pay-per-view in Las Vegas in December. But that's looking a little bit further down the line. Let's look at Saturday night first. Julianna Pena, Kayla Harrison. This is going to be an absolute slobber knocker for as long as it lasts in the women's bantamweight division. Championship on the line. Will it be the Venezuelan Vixen, or will it be the two-time Olympic champion, Kayla Harrison? Can't wait to find out, but it's going to be violent and possibly a little bit bloody before we get to the end of this one. Should be a banger at UFC 316. All right, they were your two title fights at the top of the card at UFC 316, but the main card, top to tail, is absolutely loaded with great fights. Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer will be the fight that leads into those two title fights. The fight at middleweight, Kelvin Gastelum, we've seen him bounce around the weight classes. Does he fight at welterweight? Does he fight at middleweight? Well, he definitely looks better at middleweight, even though I think his natural best weight class is probably welterweight. He just seems to struggle at times getting his weight right at 170 pounds, and the performances have been a little bit up and down. I think we've seen the best of him at 185 pounds. That war with Israel Adesanya, where he pushed him to the absolute limit, one of the great title fights in UFC history, that will be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame fight wing this summer during International Fight Week. So Gastelum, along with Izzy, will head into the UFC Hall of Fame this summer. But currently, his mind is going to be on body bags, Joe Pyfer, who is coming in with a chip on his shoulder and a point to prove. These two were due to fight in Mexico City. Pyfer contracted some sort of illness. I think it was some sort of gastroenteritis scenario. Not well enough to fight. They had to withdraw the fight from the card. Thankfully, they've kept the booking. The relationship between the pair has been pretty respectful from what I can see. Looks like Pyfer doesn't hold any animosity towards Gastelum. Lightweight's the other way around. However, Joe Pyfer, make no mistake, is going in there to take Kelvin Gastelum's head off. He wants to go in there and put on a statement performance. He's still stinging a little bit from his defeat to Jack Hermansson 2 fights prior. He bounced back with a knockout victory of Marc-Andre Barriault, but this is a step up in competition in Kelvin Gastelum. This is a man who's been in there with some of the very best on the planet. He's been in there and knocked out Michael Bisping. He's been in there and taken Israel Adesanya to the absolute limit in a title fight. This is someone who, on his day, is capable of being among the very, very best at 185 pounds. Pyfer wants to go in there and do a job on him. If he does, then he announces himself as a dangerous contender in the 185 pound division and can start to set his sights on some ranked opposition in that UFC middleweight division. For Gastelum, it's another opportunity to just prove his toughness and his ability inside the octagon. If he turns back the challenger Joe Pyfer, there could be a big fight or two down the line for him a little bit later this year. But as a piece of matchmaking, I really like it. Pyfer is a sizable favourite for this, minus 380 to Gastelum's plus 300, 3-1 underdog in a 2-horse race is a pretty sizable underdog price if you like Kelvin Gastelum in this one. But Pyfer, to me, looks like he's a man on a mission, and Gastelum's going to need to be on top form to make sure he doesn't get beat in this fight. Should be a banger. It's a perfect fight to lead in to our 2 title fights. So that's your middleweight fight on the main card, Gastelum versus Pyfer. And leading into that, we've got another cracker of a fight at 135 pounds. We've got bantamweights, 2 bantamweight fights at the top of the card. We've got another one here on the main card. Number 10 ranked Merab Dvalishvili is welcoming Patchy Mix to the UFC. Mix coming in on just 3 and a bit weeks' notice, replacing Marlon Chito Vera, who is due to be taking on Bautista this weekend in Newark, New Jersey. Instead, it's the former Bellator bantamweight world champion who has only lost once in his entire career and has been putting people away left, right, and center. He steps into the UFC and believes that he is now already the best bantamweight in the UFC. He gets the chance to make a statement against Mario Bautista this weekend, who is on a hell of a win streak, coming off victory against Jose Aldo, albeit a slightly controversial one, not the most entertaining fight to watch, and it was a very closely contested fight as well. Some people thought that Aldo might have done enough to win that fight. However, we're in a situation here where Bautista has a long win streak in the UFC. We've got Patchy Mix, who has a stellar record. He was undoubtedly the most dominant bantamweight in Bellator and one of the very best champions that Bellator had just before they brought the shutters down on their promotion and joined the PFL. Patchy granted his release from the PFL and is now officially a UFC fighter. He wants to go in there and blow the doors off Mario Bautista and immediately set his sights on the guys who are fighting in the main event. He's trained with Merab before. He thinks he's got Merab's number, and he certainly thinks that he can beat Sean O'Malley. He says that if he was in a title fight against either of these guys this weekend, he would beat either of these guys this weekend. That's how confident in his skills Patchy No Love Mix really is. And anybody who's watched him perform in Bellator will be of the view that, do you know what? He is that good. He is someone who is in the top 3 or 4 at worst in the UFC bantamweight division. This is an opportunity for him to come in and really make a statement against a guy who no one wants to fight and that the people that do fight find incredibly difficult to deal with. So could be a tough matchup for Patchy to sort of get to grips with. But if he can get Mario Bautista on the floor, then Patchy is an absolute wizard on the mat. And he could get this one done by submission. Then he can be calling out the winner of the main event. Make no mistake about it. That is what he intends to do on his UFC debut at UFC 316. Mario Bautista, meanwhile, a win over Patchy Mix is a huge feather in the cap. Beats him, he can then start looking at top 5 opposition potentially as he looks to put himself in line for a shot at that 135-pound title. UFC bantamweight division, probably the most stacked division in the UFC, top to toe in terms of pure talent. And every single fight involving fighters in that top 10 is an absolute banger. This one should be no different. Will it be Bautista extending that win streak even further? Or will Patchy Mix be putting the division on notice with an eye-catching display on his Octagon debut? I cannot wait to find out. And finally, kicking off the main card, a welterweight matchup between 2 real crowd pleasers. Vicente Luque, ranked 14th in the division right now, and Kevin Holland, who seems to fight every 3 weeks. He's back in the cage again. I think this will be his 3rd fight of 2025, and we're only in the start of June. He wants to fight 6 times this year, which would be insane. He's on course to do that. Up next is Vicente Luque at welterweight. Holland has been bouncing between middleweight and welterweight. This one will be at 170 pounds, which is, for me, Holland's best division. And against someone like Luque, This is a fight that will give him the opportunity to really test his skills. He's got decent stand-up as Holland. Luque really good on the feet. Holland excellent grappling on the mat. Vicente Luque has legit submission skills of his own. Whichever way this fight shakes out, I think this is going to be one of the better fights of the night in Newark, New Jersey this weekend at UFC 316. I'd lean, even though Holland is the betting favourite for this, I'm leaning towards the underdog. I'm leaning towards Vicente Luque. I just got this feeling that Luque, his striking is a little bit more crisp. He's carrying a little bit more power. And I think his submissions are a little bit underrated. He's got an outstanding Darce choke. But I think it's likely to be the power that either gets it done or opens up a submission opportunity for Luque. But really, this is a great fight. I think it's a much closer fight than even the odds are suggesting. It's almost a coin flip. But for me, I'm leaning ever so slightly in the direction of Vicente Luque, the Brazilian from Killcliff MMA. Should be an absolute banger of a fight to kick off the main card at UFC 316. And we got some good stuff on the prelims as well. Bruno Silva taking on Joshua Van. 2 ranked flyweights going head-to-head in the feature prelims. You've got Azamat Mirzakhanov taking on Brenton Ribeiro at light heavyweight. Mirzakhanov a big favourite in that fight. -625 favourite. Sergey Spivak taking on Waldo Cortez Acosta at heavyweight. The Polar Bear ranks 7th. Cortez Acosta very quietly has moved his way into the top 15 and he's ranked 11th. The win over Spivak puts him as high as he's ever been in the UFC heavyweight division and opens up some new possibilities for him. Spivak, I would imagine, will look to get Cortez Acosta to the mat, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he gets that job done inside the first round and a half. He's a monster on the ground. And kicking off the televised prelims, a fight that only came together a few days ago. Chaos Williams against Andreas Gustafsson. Gustafsson was due to face was due to make his debut, last weekend at the UFC Apex. His fight got cancelled. He's now taking on Chaos Williams. His fight on this card was due to be against Uros Medic. Medic was withdrawn on medical grounds. Gustafsson fit, firing, ready to go. You good to go? Yeah, he's good to go. Bang. He's straight in on the card. Chaos Williams, Andreas Gustafsson. If you've not seen Gustafsson fight, he is just an absolute mauler. I know all nods to his namesake, Alex Gustafsson from Sweden. But Andreas Gustafsson, no relation, but he just loves to come forward and brawl. And that Chaos Williams will absolutely entertain that every day of the week and twice on Sundays. That is going to be an absolute cracker. Don't expect it to go to the judges. If it does, we're looking at a fight of the night contender. If it doesn't, it means we're going to see some sort of vicious knockout at some point in the proceedings. That is the opening preliminary card fight of UFC 316. I would highly recommend, if you are getting up to watch these fights on Saturday night, don't just get up for the main card. Get up for the prelims and watch that. That is going to be an absolute banger. We've also got the early prelims, which are shown on UFC Fight Pass. Ariane De Silva, formerly known as Ariane Lipski, for those of you who remember, she's taking on Wang Tong. That is going to be a great fight as well. Wang Tong, not ranked, but someone with real potential to explode her way into the women's flyweight rankings, taking on ranked opposition in Ariane De Silva. De Silva, pretty good, well-rounded, good submission skills, likes to stand and throw, but Wang Tong is a very, very good striker. If she keeps it standing, I think the Chinese prospect could end up turning herself into a contender in this fight. So keep an eye on that one. You've got Pride of Indonesia, Jeka Saragi taking on Ju Sang Yu from South Korea. Ju Sang Yu, someone who fought on, it was recently featured on Dana White Looking for a Fight, fighting for the Korean Zombies promotion. He has been given a shot in the UFC, taking on Jeka Saragi, who trains out there in San Diego with the MMA Fight Academy. He has the whole country backing him. It is incredible the backing he receives, and he's a bit of a national hero in terms of Indonesian mixed martial arts, flying the flag for his nation in the Octagon, taking on a very dangerous knockout artist from South Korea. Jeka loves to stand and throw. Yu loves to stand and throw. I can't see how this fight isn't super entertaining and might even challenge for either fight of the night or maybe, if there's a knockout, a performance of the night bonus for one of those two. And the first two fights on the card, Quillan Salkill from Australia taking on Yanal Ashmouz. Salkill, big favourite for this, but Ashmouz has legit punch power. That would be an interesting one. And the opening bout of the Fight Pass prelims, Markel Medeiros against Mark Chowinski, all-American lightweight battle to kick things off in Newark, New Jersey. That is your fight card for UFC 316. Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. Should be a great night of fights. Before we leave you, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and give us a follow on socials. RDX Sports on X, RDX_sports on Instagram and Threads. You can follow me on all social channels at Simon Head Sport. Should be a packed weekend. Should be a fun weekend. Lots going on in Newark, New Jersey. That fight card is pretty stacked. Loads of great fights on the card. Get the beers in, get the snacks in, have your tactical nap beforehand if you're like me and you can't go all the way through the night. This should be a great night of fights. I'm really looking forward to checking it out. Enjoy the fights this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll speak to you next week.